Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer. I'm Jennifer Ponder, of course. You can follow me on Twitter here. I am the front-end track lead for Women Who Code. So today we'll be getting into React hooks and actually what is a React hook. Should be going to my next slide. Oh, hold on. So actually, what are hooks? And basically, hooks are just a way to hook into functional components so you can get your state out of that. So basically, hooks were introduced in the 16.8 version of the React documentation. Also, you can find some in 16.7 as well. And they do help you to write cleaner code. So basically, if you're used to writing class components a lot, you notice how they can become very cumbersome and they become very extended. So hooks is just a way to shorten your code and also help you to write cleaner code. So why are hooks important? Of course, like I said earlier, it helps you to reuse stateful logic between components. They let you split one component into smaller functions, of course, and also, as I said before, they allow you to write cleaner code and not have to have a lot of complex class components and cumbersome code to read through. So some rules for using hooks: obviously you won't use them inside of nested functions. You will have them at the top level of your functional components. Also, as I said before, you don't want to use them inside of loops, conditions, or nested functions. You must use the word use in front of the actual hook, which we'll see in a moment. And also, it's just that, again, you will use them in functional components and not class components. So some common hooks in React is UseState, UseEffect. Those were the ones that were pretty much the first hooks that came out. And the UseState hook just does what it says. It allows you to add state to your functional components. And here you'll see we have a class component here. And pretty much what we're doing here is we're setting our state constructor here. This is going to set the state for us. We're incrementing. We have a method here to increment the count because we've set the initial value count to 0 here. And then also we're just going to render our function down here is what you're going to see. And this is pretty much going to be in ES6, so if you're familiar with that as well. Okay, so here's the functional component. Here's our hook right here, UseState. So when I stated earlier, you're going to have the keyword use in there, so that's how you set it up. And this is your functional component, of course. And here's your initial value right here. So we have count and set count. So think of this like this dot set state. So when you're binding this in a normal class component, that's really what that does. So it's kind of like if you have state dot set state, basically. You can think of that as. Okay. So and pretty much this is just another example just to show you, So this is just another example just to show you again the count and the set count, and also the use state hook, and just to show you how that looks. Now for UseEffect hooks, so basically if you're doing anything like data fetching, changing your DOM elements, and setting up subscriptions, this pretty much reminds you of, component did mount, component did update, and component will unmount that you typically have in a class component. And also, just to let you know what it does in depth, by using UseEffect, it lets you know your component needs to do something after every render. So it's going to run on the first render, but sometimes you will have to place an empty array for that to not keep rendering. Say, for instance, if you're doing API calls, which we'll see a functional component in a second. Okay, so here's our UseEffect hook right here that we have. So like I said, normally, typically where you'll see your component did mount, component update, and component unmount, you're going to have that here. And pretty much if you're familiar with JSX, you know that's how React handles JavaScript functions right there. Okay, so and this is our comparison of a class component versus UseEffect here. So notice again how we could have close to about what? 10 to 15 lines here of code, where something with a React hook we can do here in much less time. So here, because we're setting the state, again, this is our object, this is our constructor that's going to set the state here. But we're doing it over here using hooks with the UseState and UseEffect. So just to show you how that works. So I just wanted to do a comparison there so you could see side by side. Okay, so UseEffect with API fetch, and we know pretty much when you're doing API calls, just like I stated earlier, if the page keeps rendering, you could just have 1,000 API calls going. So you would want to set, as I said before, the empty array there so that can prevent that. Okay, so now let's talk advanced hooks. I know that was just some basic ones, but if you've heard of, there's a lot around right now. There's 11 that I've taken a look at, and these may be some that you want to take a look at on your own, and you can also build custom React hooks as well. Okay, so we have UseReducer. So UseReducer hook is used for complex state and state transitions. It's like the reducer function. It takes an initial state as an input and returns the current state and dispatch functions of output and array destructuring. So if you've used Redux as a state management option before, you're pretty much familiar with this. Let's see if we can get this. Okay. So basically, and that's just what I was saying earlier, if you have two values and you're reducing it down to one. Now this is normally typically how this UseReducer hook will look when you're using it. And as I stated before, if you're familiar with actions and dispatch and what they do in reduce, this is how you're going to set your state here. All right, so let's go back. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, so UseContext. So UseContext provides a way to pass data through the component tree without having to pass props down manually at different nesting levels. So usually, if you're familiar with the context API in React, you notice that a lot of times you're going to have components that are nested. So basically, you could probably go through maybe 4 to 5 components even further down, and you need to reach your state. So this is what UseContext does. Now I just want to show you a reference here, basically to how the MyContext API, how you normally would access it is through the React.createContext. And also you're going to have a provider and also the consumer as well, if you're doing it from a regular class component. Okay, so this, hopefully you can see that. That gives you an example here of the state and the dispatch. As I said before in Redux, that's going to be something that's common to that. And also, which lets you look at, basic, this is a to-do app, because normally in React, you're building different to-do apps. So basically, here, I just wanted to show you how those would work for React hooks here. Okay, hold on, what's going on? Okay, so sorry, it's going back on me. Okay, so use ref. Refs are used to access the DOM or DOM elements rendered in a function. So this would be a typical class component that you would see here. And again, you're creating your state constructor, of course. And this would be how you create the ref. This is how it has always been done beforehand as a class component. However, there is a way you can do that in hooks. So basically, you would use a useRef hook here, and you're still, again, creating your ref here. We're initiating a value here. We're setting that variable, and also your function here. So basically you're doing the same thing. You're just setting a hook example right now. Okay. Sorry, it's going back through the code. Yeah. It can. Yep, it can. Sorry, it's going through all the slides again, guys. These remotes are crazy. Well, if you want to see all my code, I'm showing it again. Sorry. You get a closer look. Okay. Okay, so now I have his name with me. Okay, so this was actually the video, and you can go online to the React Hooks documentation. This was actually at the React conference in 2018, where Sophie Alford and Dan Abramov, they debuted React Hooks actually. So they'll take you through, and actually it's a guy, Ryan Florence, he actually refactored a whole complete entire application with hooks. And I think it's about 30 to probably 20 to 35 minutes of him. He did about 2 applications where he refactored in hooks. So I think that's a good resource if you want to look into, how it came about, the motivation behind it. Like I said earlier, just people wanting to not have to write so many components, class components, of course. And I know that they stated that it was harder, seems like, for people and machines to understand the class components. Now, you would think, okay, you're a developer, you understand class components, of course, but it seems like for certain machines to understand the code, it got a little cumbersome. So they came up with React Hooks. So just wanted to show you that too. Now, here's some resources also. I'm sure we'll have somewhere to place our slides and presentations if you want to go through it a little bit more, but these are some helpful resources that I thought were great. And of course the React docs, the React Hooks documentation, of course, goes into more depth about the React hooks. And like I said, what's really cool about this, you can create your own custom hooks. I mean, there's several of them out there that I've seen and did some research on. So I thought that was pretty cool. Give me just a second. And let's see, we had something else I had. Okay, so some key takeaways, as I said earlier, you want to be sure that you use the word use when creating hooks, of course, because otherwise you're just going to be creating functions and you can't do basic JavaScript functions, with using React hooks. Also, you want to call hooks at the top level, of course, where you saw them earlier. And I'll go back through my code if you want. My remote is awesome. And also only call hooks from function components, of course, because that's why these were created. And I thought, also too, it's a web optimization tool. I was reading a lot online about how it made your applications faster. And, some people, they can beg to differ that, and of course that could be different. But I thought that it was a really cool feature, of course, and I think it's something that you could still build and do a lot of research on, because they're definitely still new, because I have heard some people talk about they may not be used so much in different forms of enterprises or small businesses. It just depends on what works for you, and even in your own personal development as well, whether or not you want to try this technology. But I think it is moving at a fast pace right now, of course. But of course, like I said, I just wanted to show the 11 that I found earlier on. But of course, there's several of them out there that you can use and test in your own code. Have any of you all ever used React hooks? Anybody in here that's okay? Awesome. So we do have some people that, that it's not too, on the cusp or foreign to right now. So that's great. Did you all have any questions? I know this probably went by kind of quick, but just wanted to kind of talk about this because this was pretty awesome for me, just to find out. I'm always trying to find new things. So I thought this was a pretty unique tool that has come about in just all the information that I've been finding out about React hooks. And then also too, this is where you can find me other than my own social. I am the front end track lead for Women Who Code, as I stated. If you do want to follow us, this is our React month. So we're having all technical web content dealing with React, all of our webinars this month. We're going to have some great guests, and basically you can follow us to find out more and how you can get involved with us if you all would like to do anything with our community and all that. We're very inclusive, and we love that type of information and love everybody to join us. Thank you. Let me see if I do. I think I probably just had just the primitive ones in here, just the earlier ones, but let me see if we do, because if not, I can pull up one and definitely show you though. Let's see if we have any. Right, yes, mm-hmm. Let's see, I think in here, these are all just the standard ones. Actually, I have a slide here I can go back through for you. Sorry. Whoa. And I have, it should be one with a, I want to say, okay, I took those out, but lock body scroll, that was one of the ones. It was another one, React. I'm trying to think of it. Let me get actually a good resource for you. But the lock body scroll, that's more on a custom hook level. But actually, I can add another resource in here with some great ones that are custom, because a lot of times the regular ones that are a part of the documentation, a lot of people find that those maybe not really restricted, but you can't do as much if you want to create, because sometimes you're going to have a lot of applications that are very complex, and you need to do a lot more just beyond the standard hooks that are in the documentation.
There's an example of building your own in the React docs for it too.
Okay. Yeah, it is. It's actually at the bottom, because I did look over that. Yeah. I don't know if I just did not add one here. Sure, yeah. Yeah, sure. I'm sorry, what was that? Well, I have read about that there has been, but like I said, again, it's just so much back and forth sometimes between people saying, well, I don't think that's true. It's kind of like the back and forth. But what I have seen, that it is showing great, stance on the up and up, where it is more, just powerful, more powerful for your web optimization. But you'll still have some people that saying, no, React hooks is just not really that great, I think. And that's always with probably anything, but from what I've seen, it is showing very good that your applications are faster with these. And then, like I said, you're not having to spend hours writing a class component if you have a lot of nested, a lot of components to go through, and actually passing state down through several props. It saves you a lot of time with that.
Has there been any instances of any issues or like use cases where are any known issues with using hooks, as far as like things to look out for that may cause problems, or just like common mistakes that people make with them since it's been debuted?
From what I found, it's pretty much just, several debugging issues, like your issues that you would find in your standard good GitHubs or on Stack Overflow. Well, hey, maybe I didn't use this in the correct place or syntax level. And that's not to say there's not any out there, but nothing that I found that has been, detrimental. Hey, don't use this. Your, application is just going to implode or something. Nothing that I've seen so far, even though I've been keeping an eye out, of course, because, I know, like I said, to some point, I'm doing some extended research on these because, of course, just with any technology, you want to see how well it's going to do, the performance rate, and, if you want to use this in your own applications every day, kind of adopt this new sort of thing that's going on. But I haven't seen anything that has caused like problems or people can't use them. Actually, if you look online, React hooks, they're everywhere now. People are using them all the time. There's a new video coming out every day, and it's a new talk about them all the time. So actually, I think they're going to be moving much more rapid. And of course, people are building complex React hooks all the time. I'm seeing about 30 new ones almost every day, like seriously, on your own if you want. But I believe there is also talks of doing, more conferences related to these about, like you said, the issues, what's going on, because it is still new, but people want to know, okay, well, if it's so fast, as you say, let's see how this could make our web better, but what else is going on underneath the hood that you may not be telling us, and, the testing phase and all that stuff, so.
But so in general, if you are already using React as your code base, that there wouldn't really be any issues with just implementing hooks.
Right. Yeah. On the basis like that, yeah, like you said, you already have React. You shouldn't have any problems at all. Mm-hmm. And also, too, I'll show you guys the resource slide again, just so if there's anything there you want to take a picture of as well. Also, too, has it been anybody, have you all created anything interesting with React hooks so far? I know you said you've used them. Is that just pretty much at work or on your own on the side, or? Okay. Okay, cool.
We have a create React app thing that has been pre-approved, all of this internal stuff put in. And
Oh, okay.
the last thing is like, actually don't use React. So, no, we did not.
Well, here's something now, because I want to get you all hooked on React hooks, or at least go and explore it on your own, see if it's okay for you to use, if you want to use it, of course. Everything's, not foolproof sometimes. If it works for you, it works. But, of course, definitely wanted to do that and just kind of tell you, of course, what they are, how you can use them, what's the motivation behind them, because basically people, just kind of found class components to be cumbersome. They were just takes more time. You got to write a constructor to get your state out. And when you can just pretty much, hey, put you a UseState hook at the top, make sure it flows down and does the exact same thing. And it's all about time optimization to, if you have great time management, you could be doing a lot within your application that you need to do instead of kind of going down. And one thing too is to prevent prop drilling. That was something else with the UseContext, because UseContext API is rather complex because it is supposed to help out in getting your state down through nested components, basically. So React hooks, they wanted to try to combat a lot of the things that they were finding with class components.
Would you recommend starting with, like if you wanted to start implementing these, would you recommend maybe refactoring first before trying to use them from scratch, or does it not really matter?
It doesn't really matter, but I think refactoring would help because it could give you a comparison, basically, of what, hey, I'm writing my class components here. What my finding with my class components instead of just writing functional. But if you want to create them from scratch, that's also something too, because you can take note of what's happening. Actually, just starting out with React hooks as a basic function and noticing over time, well, hey, I wrote these class components and it took me so much time to do just one or two things that I could do. So it's pretty much up to you what you want to do, and how you can find it may help you better. I think just either or, yeah. I wouldn't say one way or the other, but I have been noticing a lot more people, they have been refactoring applications. So they'll go back and take a look at, hey, what worked as class components or what didn't work, and let's refactor our whole application if we have time. I actually sat one weekend and I did a React to do app as a class. I did it in class components first, then refactor it and did it in React hooks. I actually think hooks are personally better for me, but that was just me creating a small to-do app. Now, if I'm creating an enterprise application, that might be much more, I could find out like, okay, this is still a bit, I like it, but, so I think it just depends on what you want to do.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, you'll find those things. And I think it's pretty much too, like you said, the small things we would think we'll always have a problem, or we'll just like, hey, our application's just blowed up on us. It's not working. But yeah, I think, and it's up to you. You just have to find out, what works for application, or what works, at the enterprise level for your job or wherever, to see how it works. So it just depends. Let's check our time. So we got a few minutes left. I know. So I was like, okay, and then I'll show you all this last slide. We had our key takeaways also, of course, like we stated earlier. And, if you all want to see that information, if you want to take a look at what's going on with Women Who Code front end, definitely do that. We have two of my awesome volunteers here. I know Cecilia's talking to somebody. Miriam, raise your hand. And Cecilia is my other awesome volunteer. She's amazing. Thanks. I just wanted to shout you guys out. But that's pretty much, that was it. Thanks, guys.